It was so loud, and there were loud booms and flashes of light, yelling. It was just a very chaotic scene, and it looked like a war zone. It was very surreal and seemed like it was a movie.
31-year-old Texas resident Jade Guajardo had a picture-perfect life. She loved her 2 children and had just come out of a turbulent relationship through an amicable breakup. She was on good terms with her ex-boyfriend and was looking forward to a stable life ahead. But little did she know that her boyfriend was still holding a grudge against her. What started as a simple drop-off turned into a deadly hostage situation, and Jade met a tragedy she had never seen coming. So what happened to her? Who did this to her? And what motive did the perpetrator have? Stay tuned as we attempt to find answers to these questions in today's video. Let's take a look at Jade Guajardo's tragic ending and see how it all unfolded.
We are going on a little adventure.
Let's go take a full walk outside, okay?
Okay.
Jade Guajardo was born on November 5, 1991. At the time of the unfortunate event, she was 31 years old and lived in Austin, Texas, with her 2 beautiful children. Friends and family knew her as a fun-loving and outgoing person who enjoyed every moment of her life. She loved to travel and would often post beautiful vacation images and videos on her social media pages.
Practice, ready? You know it's hot out here for a pen. Come over here.
We are trying to get this money for the web.
Her sons Elijah and Christian were the apples of her eyes. She would always post about them on her social media, keeping her friends up to date with her little adventures with her sons. She was also a big family girl. She was raised by her mother Yolanda Guzman and stepfather Marlon Guzman, and she shared a great bond with both. After moving to Texas, she would often visit her father Abel's house and spend quality time with him. Apart from being a lovely mother, she was also working in the beauty and wellness industry. She provided therapeutic massages, waxing, retwisting dreadlocks, and eyelash extension services. Her love for the industry was evident in her appearance because she would often experiment with makeup styles and hair dyes on herself. She would always appear polished and put together and came across as a woman of high taste. Jade had an ex-boyfriend named Devonte Fox, who was the father of both of her sons. The two had met and fell in love and dated for quite a few years, but their relationship was tumultuous and they couldn't handle it. After the birth of their younger son, they decided to quit the relationship. Neither Devonte nor Jade had an issue with the breakup, and they ended things pretty amicably. However, their sons were still very young and needed both their parents. So, the two decided to stay in each other's lives and maintain a civil friendship just for the sake of their 2 sons. However, they fought at the drop of the hat and never left a chance where they could insult and shout at each other. Their fights would get so loud that sometimes law enforcement would have to intervene to break them up, but the next day, they would fall right back into the same pattern. Neighbors and friends thought this was normal for the broken-up parents. Around that time, Jade went through a thyroid surgery, which revealed that she had cancer. Rather than hiding the truth from the world, Jade decided to speak about it on her social media accounts, and soon became a ray of hope for many others fighting the same battle. She updated her friends and followers after receiving her first treatment.
A lot of people do not know this, but after my thyroid surgery, the pathology test came back and it was cancer. So I finally went through my radioactive treatment yesterday, and that drained everything.
She also mentioned how she had a soft corner and admiration for people who had cancer and were in more serious stages. Her cancer was benign, and she didn't have to fight as hard as some other patients, and she prayed for their recovery. She also hoped that her cancer wouldn't return.
I have a new profound admiration for people that have cancer and have to go through chemo and radiation every day, every week, whatever the case may be. I thank God that mine is less aggressive. I don't have to go through this. Pray to Jesus. This is my last time. But it's unbelievable, and I love you guys.
And after her chemotherapy was successful, she posted a video on her social media pages mentioning how she was finally cancer-free.
I had already had thyroid surgery, so that was already removed. But the radioactive treatment did work. It did what it was supposed to do. The cancer didn't spread anywhere else. And yeah, wish. You know, life's great. Pussy's still good.
Despite beating cancer, Jade couldn't enjoy the rest of her life in peace. On February 7, 2023, at 1:14 in the afternoon, the Austin Police Department responded to a call from Jade. She asked them to immediately come to the 1000 block of Sweet Melissa Drive in a neighborhood near I-35 in Wells Branch Parkway. She'd called to report a domestic disturbance caused by her ex-boyfriend, Devontae. According to her, she was dropping him off at the address she mentioned over the call. When she attempted to leave, Devontae slashed her tires, preventing her from leaving. The police arrived there immediately and offered Jade a ride. She took it and left the place. But this wasn't the end of this story. The last spoke to Jade at around 2:30 p.m. to discuss the updates on the domestic disturbance case. She was at a different location at that moment, and the police couldn't locate Devontae at that time. Just before 8 p.m., they received a call from an anonymous person who reported some disturbance at a house on Melissa Drive. This was the same house that the officers came to earlier that day. The caller mentioned that the home belonged to Devontae and that he was engaged in some sort of conflict inside his house. When the officers arrived, they discovered that Jade was in the house with Devontae and was being held hostage. Even after getting out of this house with the help of the police earlier that day, Jade was here once again. It was unclear whether Jade came to this house willingly or was forced or blackmailed into coming by Devontae. After trying to get him to come out and hand Jade over to the police, the officers called in the SWAT team. They tried to negotiate with Devontae, but he refused to cooperate. The SWAT team stood surrounding the house for almost 3 to 4 hours, after which they decided to enter the house forcefully at around 12:14 a.m. After clearing the ground floor, they went upstairs and found Jade and Devontae in a room. Both of them had bullet wounds. Jade had a fatal wound, and she passed away at the scene after succumbing to her injuries. Devontae was barely holding on and was rushed to the hospital immediately. His wounds were equally fatal, and the emergency team tried everything in their power to save his life. After struggling to hold on for 3 days, Devontae passed away at the hospital. After the preliminary investigation, the officers concluded that Devontae had attacked Jade and then turned the gun on himself in an attempt to take his own life. And now, both of them were gone, leaving the 2 little boys to fend for themselves for the rest of their long lives. They would now grow up without their parents and would be traumatized for life after learning how their parents passed away. After the SWAT team invaded Devontae's home and retrieved their wounded bodies, reporters flocked to the crime scene and spoke to the neighbors. Some of them were around when the SWAT team stood outside the house at Melissa Drive and tried negotiating with Devontae, and when they entered the house forcefully. One of these neighbors was Amanda Lombard. She lived just beside Devontae and had security cameras installed at her place. Her camera recorded the moments when Devontae could be heard arguing viciously with Jade inside his home. They were so loud that the camera captured the commotion perfectly.
Shouting, a man and woman in distress. Amanda Lombard's security cameras picked up this argument outside her neighbor's home around 8 Tuesday night.
The row only escalated, and the neighbors feared that something disturbing might take place. So one of them called the police department immediately. According to Amanda, the fight stopped suddenly, and everything fell unnaturally quiet. She thought maybe their fight was over after the police intervened.
It stopped. And it became very quiet, and you could hear cars leaving, multiple cars leaving, and it became quiet. So I thought it was over.
However, it was far from over. Amanda heard a knock on her door soon, and when she went to check it, she found the SWAT team standing there, clad in their uniforms and holding weapons. They also had cadaver dogs with them. Behind them, she could spot multiple armored vehicles. The SWAT team was preparing to go inside the house. Amanda was shocked at the intensity of the situation, and for a brief moment, it scared her.
SWAT knocked on Lombard's door.
There were canines. I heard drones. Armored vehicles then showed up. And they proceeded to get prepared to enter the home. And that's when things really became more scary.
Around 9 p.m., the officers present there announced that the domestic dispute had become a hostage situation. At this point, the SWAT team was taking cover in Amanda's house as well, so that they would have all sides covered. They wanted to ensure that they could bring the hostage out without any casualties. As they took position around the block, the entire neighborhood was scared and anxious about their safety.
On their roofs, in their homes on the second floor with, weapons drawn and aimed, and were hunkered down in their bathrooms. So it was pretty traumatizing for the entire neighborhood.
And then, surveillance cameras captured the moment the SWAT made an announcement before breaking into the house. Around 12:30 in the morning, the SWAT team managed to enter the house. The neighbors couldn't see what strategies they followed, but they heard loud noises and flashes of light. There was a lot of commotion and people shouting at each other. Amanda had only seen stuff like this in the movies. She could only hope for the night to pass and the situation to become better.
It was so loud, and there were loud booms and flashes of light, yelling. It was just a very chaotic scene, and it looked like a war zone. It was very surreal and seemed like it was a movie.
After entering the house, the SWAT team found that Jade had passed away and Devontae was severely injured. A spokesperson from the team spoke to the reporters and informed them that there were no other people inside the house, and only the 2 wounded people who were involved in the situation were found inside the house. They initially didn't disclose any information to the reporters about the relationship that Jade and Devontae shared. They also couldn't tell what happened before they arrived at the scene. The reporters asked the neighbors for the identification of the 2, and they said that the son of Amanda's neighbor was injured in the incident. Reporters also collected Jade's identification from her family. Amanda said that these incidents were on the rise at an alarming rate, but she believed that a little more emotional support could prevent people from taking such drastic steps.
I think more resources and less stigma. And if people felt loved and supported, I think there'd be a lot less of this going on.
Domestic violence and homicide cases are on the rise in Austin, Texas, and the locals can't help but panic a little at the rapidly growing number. Jade and Devontae's incident happened in February 2023. It was only the second month of the year, and it was already the 11th homicide case of 2023.
In many situations, even their close friends and family may not know what they're going through. And according to a new report, here in Texas, rates of violence hit near record highs last year.
In fact, in 2023, the numbers had hit a new record.
This year, we're reporting the second highest number of intimate partner homicides that we've reported in the history of recording and documenting this information. We're also showing an increase in the number of young people who are victims of intimate partner homicide and who are perpetrating intimate partner homicide.
Experts were also concerned because a majority of these cases involved a weapon. The combination was deadly and needed immediate attention so that they wouldn't spiral out of control further. Let's take a look at some of these incidents that took place in 2023. In March 2023, police received a 911 call from a woman named Minerva Jimenez. The 30-year-old reported being knifed by her husband at an apartment complex in the 11th 1800 block of Metric Boulevard in North Austin. She said she believed she was dying. The officers arrived immediately, but it was too late.
The Austin Police Department is investigating its 16th homicide of the year. This happened at an apartment complex off Metric Boulevard, just north of Breaker Lane. Here's a live look at that scene right now. Police say at around 3:15 this afternoon, they got a call about a possible shooting or stabbing at that apartment complex. Officers arrived there and found a woman with injuries. She died at the scene. About 10 minutes later, 911 operators got a call to check on a person standing on a bridge. Police did make contact with that person and got him to safety. Police say the early investigation shows the man may be involved in the woman's death.
When officers arrived on the scene, they found Jimenez, who appeared to have multiple stab wounds. The affidavit said she was pronounced dead on the scene. However, the story ended quite dramatically. Shortly after finding Minerva's body, the police received a call about a man standing on the West Palmer Lane Bridge over North Interstate 35. He appeared suicidal and wanted to jump off the bridge. His name was Blanco, and he was Minerva's husband. Shortly after officers arrived to the bridge, they were able to find and detain the suspect, the affidavit said. Officials on the scene saw blood on him, which he said was not his, and that he was not hurt. However, he told first responders in Spanish, "I assassinated my wife," the affidavit said. They took him into custody. After speaking to the neighbors, the officers got to know that Minerva often had disagreements and fights with Blanco, and he would often leave the house for days because of his bad temper. On the day of the incident, Minerva was heard saying that she felt like a servant while living with him. This clearly hinted that he was putting her through emotional abuse, but he wouldn't let her leave either. Additionally, the suspect threatened Jimenez and their family, and also made threats he would kill himself, the affidavit said. She'd also reportedly requested her partner to change the locks of the apartment, which also proved that she was being forced to stay with him. She could have taken a chance and left him, but as you can see, she she didn't get the chance. It ended horribly for her. In April 2023, 2 people died in a domestic violence case in South Austin. The police conducted a welfare check after receiving a concerned call from a mother who stated that she hadn't heard from her daughter for a few days, and it wasn't usual for her to go without speaking to her mother for so many days.
Just after noon, Austin police responded to a residence on Kenyon Drive near Stastny. They were asked to perform a wellness check after a concerned mother called, saying she hadn't heard from her daughter in a couple days.
The officers retrieved 2 dead bodies with severe injuries inside the house after checking it thoroughly and failing to get a response from the residents.
Police entered the home through what they called an unsecured door. Inside, they discovered 2 bodies with obvious signs of trauma.
After the preliminary investigation, the police concluded that it was a domestic violence case. These were the stories of homicides stemming from domestic violence. But what about the victims who survived? Well, while some of them could come out in one piece with the help of law enforcement, not all of them managed to come out unscathed. A North Alabama victim was almost beaten to death by her abusive partner named Suggs in April 2023. And after she was discharged from the hospital post-treatment, she was continuously being harassed by him and was being threatened.
Crystal Shannon says she was nearly beaten to death by her former boyfriend.
And now she says that man is threatening her while on the run from law enforcement.
I'll kill you and her both before I go back to prison.
The abuse continues for this Tennessee mom who said she received these text messages from her ex-fiancé more than a year after he nearly beat her to death.
Just to give you an idea of how badly her partner injured her, here are a few pictures of Shannon as she received treatment in the hospital. He also damaged her skull, and so she had to get brain surgery to survive the attack.
This is Crystal Shannon just 1 year ago in the hospital for treatment of her injuries following a domestic incident she says almost took her life. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office is looking for the man they believe is responsible.
When reporters spoke to Shannon, she said that she had no idea where Suggs was, but she was worried about the safety of her family and her daughter.
I don't know where he is. It's just become a worry because I don't want nobody to get hurt.
She filed a report against her ex-partner, who had since been on the run for almost a year. After her recovery, he started threatening to take her life or harm her family members if she didn't take the complaint back. Her sisters Tabitha and Leanne Shannon spoke to the reporters and said that he might have his eyes on Shannon.
He sent out text messages a few days ago threatening to kill my sister and her 3-year-old daughter. He said he saw her 3-year-old daughter jumping on the trampoline, which means he was located behind her home.
I live with my family, so he's obviously putting their life in danger as well.
After the incident and Suggs' threats, her sisters were always cautious and looking behind their backs to ensure they were not being attacked or followed around.
We have to walk them to get them on the bus, to get them off of the bus. Every time one of the dogs bark, the kids are scared that he's out here and he's going to kill someone.
And now, the family requested everyone to report to the police if they saw Suggs anywhere.
If you know him, or you've seen him, or think you've seen him, I just ask you to call the local police department or 911.
However, after a year-long manhunt, Suggs was eventually arrested and charged for attempted murder. As domestic violence cases grow around the country, we request you to report to the police if you, your loved ones, a friend, a colleague, or even a neighbor seems to be in an abusive relationship. It can either land you in the hospital like Crystal Shannon or serve you a tragic fate like Jade Guajardo. No one deserves to go like this, and you should walk out of that abusive relationship and live the rest of your life as an independent soul. What did you think of the case? Why do you think Devontae attacked Jade? Do you think they were in an abusive relationship? Do you think Devontae still wasn't over their breakup and wanted to take revenge? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.